Hello and welcome back to the Beth Effect. I'm your host, Beth Clifford. Today we're breaking down a bit of a shift that's been going on in the luxury industry and also what I like to call Ozempic. And just in general, what we are seeing now when it comes to what we define as health and luxury, and it's all rolled into one because it's a topic that's fascinated me as we've gone into 2025 and then everything that's gone on with luxury brands, the decline of flashy luxury and what's happening, including then as we see luxury brands be pulled into question. And then in addition to that, this new health craze that's also going hand in hand with Ozempic. I know it's Ozempic, but I like to call it Ozempic, and I'll get to that later in the episode. And I kind of want to deep dive it. So this episode is like two parts. And the first part is the decline of flashy luxury and what I think is actually going on. So if you have been following along, particularly when the tariffs hit, we had a shift in all of a sudden China couldn't ship out designer brands. And so we saw a lot of factories kind of put out these videos on, hey, here's how we make your designer goods that we then sell to the designer. And then the designer marks up like 200,000% and sells to you. But essentially it's this quality and this is how much it costs them. So it's kind of exposed, this has been a reckoning of like outsourcing, and it is exposed like, hey, what are you paying for and what are you actually getting as far as designer items, like luxury designer items. And it's not all designer items, but a lot of them. And it's making me question a few things. So number one, do I think that people are tired of logos, overpriced products, and the constant wealth signaling? Yeah, I think so. But particularly, I think this is coming at the end of just years of the wealth signaling coming from different influencers to flex a certain lifestyle and success level. And now hearing, that half of them were knockoffs, but even the knockoffs are really the real thing coming from the same place. It's just put a huge question mark on what does this all really mean and what's the point? It feels to me that society is just over it. And it's not about showing off anymore. It's about substance and quality. Consumers are being a lot more discerning, and brand names are now losing their power. So what this means is really the future belongs to the brands that stand for quality and not the flashiest logo. To deep dive that a little bit, I want you to think of brands like Rolex and the Birkin bag Hermes. You look at, what their craftsmanship stands for and what they represent. When was the last time you saw a commercial for a Rolex? When was the last time you saw a commercial for a Bentley car, Rolls Royce, a Maserati? I think that they don't have to, their marketing is just standing on the quality of their product. And there were actually videos of, hey, here's how you make a Birkin bag, for example. And they were going through the cost of everything. And yes, they are all handmade. And yes, they are made a lot cheaper than what they're sold for. But those types of brands will stand the test of time. Like a Rolex doesn't cost Rolex as much as they sell it for to make, but the quality of their items and where they source it from, that's why these brands stand the test of time. And even right now in a cash sensitive market, you don't see Bentleys and Rolls Royces being sold on a discount. You don't see Rolexes. Rolexes are still a very hard watch to get their hands on. I'm sure there are much more expensive watches. I'm not a watch girl, so I can't even think of anything above that. But if you are a watch fan, you see, and I don't know because I don't see the branding or the advertisement for it. Meanwhile, on the flip side of that, you see a lot of low quality products really relying on their names and not their quality, and they're kind of fading into irrelevancy. And also the knockoffs are really easy to imitate because the quality is so poor. I mean, when was the last time you saw a Gucci belt? And think how crazed that phrase was, like that stage of life was where everyone wanted a Gucci belt or those gaudy earrings that everyone was wearing. And you're just like, it wasn't, if you even think of Chanel earrings, and everyone was wearing those big CC earrings, they actually call them costume jewelry in Chanel because they know they're not solid gold. They know that it's their theater jewelry. And yet people were spending $500 to $1,000 on a jewelry item that wasn't sourced in real metal. So let that sink in for a second. But here we go. So like on my notes as I keep going, consumers, what we're seeing right now is that consumers are really turning around and they want products that stand the test of time. And the focus seems to be shifting more towards the quality of goods instead of the status symbols that are tied to the goods. And then because of that, you are seeing a huge drop in like influences as far as like big brand influences. And that's where we're seeing these micro influencers pop up and have a lot more impact. And also the micro influencers that are actually showing you realistic, real life things. TikTok Shop. If you go onto TikTok Shop, like the average price of items on there is like $12.99, $24.99. Influencers on TikTok are making thousands of dollars a day because they're selling cheaply priced or realistically priced products or outfits, and they're not making millions because they're posting items that are unrealistic for people to purchase and then flashing a lifestyle that's also unrealistic. I want to come back to this a little bit, but it makes me think of the difference between the Real Housewives franchise and then you look at these shows like what's it called? Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. Okay, we have a Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. We also have Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, both filmed in the state of Utah. And yet the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives seems to be a lot more popular because it's actually showing more real and authentic lifestyles, whereas the Real Housewives has always been, let's overinflate their lifestyles. Let's make it seem like they're a lot more wealthy than they are. These women then end up going into debt or being broke trying to keep up with like their costumes, their glam teams, their, you know, like their houses. And then you peek behind the curtain and you see like, oh, they're actually filing bankruptcy, or oh, this person rents their house, or this person, oh, wait for it, committed fraud and is in jail for scamming the elderly to pay for this lifestyle. And the disappointment now in that is the same as, it's just as disappointing as realizing that your cheap Gucci belt that people will also, that you spent $1,000 on, people could also buy for $5 on Canal Street, and it turns out they were made in the same place. So we're just feeling this draw towards quality and also authenticity. So I think it's not just in fashion though. It's not just in TV shows. You see it across the board. Like you think of all those business coaches on Instagram trying to tell you like, hey, here's how you run a business. And yet they've never actually done that. Or, you know, my favorite are the relationship coaches or the lifestyle coaches or the different, you know, mastermind dens that it's like, come here and I'm going to teach you how to do it. Meanwhile, they're getting divorced or they're cheating on their spouses, or there's then you start to hear more of it, or like, you know, they're in the middle of a Ponzi scheme. It's like the fashion influencers that have zero style and they're shilling brands that aren't fashionable, but it's just because they're going to make a lot of money on it. It's just that I think everyone is getting so sick of being lied to, and then the disappointment of finding that out afterwards online. So it's almost like, you know, I don't know if anyone cares about Hollywood anymore. I personally don't, but I feel like it's become, we cared about Hollywood and it was just as disappointing as finding out, you know, that like Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake broke up. But now we're going through, then we kind of got over Hollywood, and now we are seeing that same thing happen to our influencers or our social influencers, if you will, online. And now we're seeing that all blow up. And I think we're just like, what? Can someone out there just show us something real for once? And maybe, just maybe, finally it's the end of excess. And this is coming from someone that has been sickened over the years at how much I've spent, just because it's like more. And maybe we're just all getting to the point where we're redefining what wealth means in our lives. And it's not about how much we can spend and how much we could be dripping in designer items. It's more about quality of life and authenticity. And I want you to think about that as we move into the second stage, the Ozempic stage. But really, in general, it's just like, as we take authenticity and the whole being tired of being disappointed and lied to, and now we go into like, we go out of the fashion and the influence industry, and we now go into like the health and beauty industry, and talking about how the standard of health and beauty is also shifted and changed, because there are more and more people now on GLP-1s and other treatments. And so the question is like, what is the new beauty standard out there? Because if you look at considerers or people in the demographic to get on GLP-1s, 20% of the population right now in America is on some form of GLP-1. And to put that in perspective, 4% of considerers are on get Botox, and 20% are on GLP-1s. GLP-1s are more popular than Botox, by 5 times more popular if you look at that statistic, which is absolutely crazy. So now my question is, when achieving the ideal body is now not difficult, what's the new benchmark for health and beauty? Because what you're seeing now everywhere is that people are thin, but that doesn't actually mean healthy like it used to. And what is the symbol behind being thin? Because if the flex is that you're trying to be healthy, all you're actually showing me is that you can inject yourself once a week. So if we kind of like go into that, I call it like Ozempic, because if people ask me, I'm like thinner now than I used to be. Part of that was going through a bit of trauma. Part of that was also getting on a peptide regimen. And then part of it was that, like, honestly, for 7 years of my life, I was pregnant 4 times or postpartum. And I've not had a baby in me now for almost 7 years. So, like, naturally, I have gotten back in shape. But I will say that I prescribe to Ozempic and not Ozempic. And I say that because tits and ass, in my opinion, will stand the test of time. There used to be a time where like being super skinny was really cool. And then we had the Beyonce and J-Lo era, where then actually and Kim Kardashian, I guess, like the really curvy behind was like, we went through a phase where like being really curvy wasn't actually in style. Now we're back to like, no, actually being rake thin with no ass on Ozempic with a hollowed face seems to be the new look. But I would say I'm all about Ozempic, because honestly, no matter what, tits and ass never go out of style. Like it's a classic. So I will just say, also adding into that, just being healthy and having muscle health, healthy skin, muscle definition, vibrant, that is the new true flex now for health, instead of just being manufacturedly thin. Because achieving true health is not just about a shot every week, is it? It's mental, it's physical, it's emotional. That's the goal. And I also do think that we're getting used to noticing when someone's on Ozempic and not Ozempic, and I'm loving it, because there's now like a huge movement in overall health, and it's not just about external aesthetics anymore. It's about overall well-being. So it's almost like this revolt that we saw in like luxury brand and goods, we're also seeing for bodies, and I love it. At the end of the day, you can get, all the Botox and filler in your face and take all the Ozempic, but if you aren't eating right and your hormones are out of whack, you're going to have really awful skin, a hollowed face, and you'll be losing your hair. And also, there's no muscle definition on your body. So again, it raises the question of what is healthy and what is the new beauty standard out there. There are a lot of things that we can do to look good externally, I should say. But what we really need to do is put the work and value to instill real health protocols and standards in your life. So basically, these two things, like, what do these shifts mean for the future? I think all around, the new flex for 2025 is just truly being authentic. I think that's a new flex. Because what have we learned so far? Anyone can slap a label on a bag and call it designer. Anyone can inject themselves once a week and call themselves skinny. It's laziness described as luxury. So that is not the flex. That is not the flex for 2025. It's authenticity. And that's what we need to heavily lean into. People want realness, whether in their products they buy for, the way they approach beauty, their body images. People want the truth. And the culture is shifting towards that. And I want you to ask yourself right now, like, who do you follow on social media, and what are you influenced by? And is it the same as it used to be 2 years ago? And then also think about, when was the last time you unfollowed someone, and what was the reason why? And the people that you follow, there are so many people I follow that like aren't the same style as me, live a completely different life from me, but they're so authentic that I actually find it like so entertaining to follow along. I'm craving more realness, and I'm seeing that shift in others as well. So really, this cultural shift, it's about reclaiming your power, moving away from excess, investing in what truly matters, and understanding what truly matters to you, which is essentially substance over status, real health over physical aesthetics. And my call to action for you, I guess, as we wrap up this episode is, pay attention to what you say you value and what actions show that you value. Because don't worry what everyone else is doing. Like, no one cares anymore what everyone else is doing. Mainstream, there is no mainstream anymore. I feel like it's been completely blown up. Just because everyone is getting on Ozempic, lean into being a Ozempic and just focus on your overall well-being and get really healthy. Who cares what's trendy to wear in 2025? Quality over quantity. Look at the fabrics you like. Look at the products that you like. Look at what you already have and recycle the wardrobe you already have. Rewear your go-to items and stick with it, because that is actually true style. By the way, true style has nothing to do with trends. And so that is my advice as I wrap up this, and just kind of, it's like word vomit and all these thoughts I've been having over the last couple of months, and what I've been seeing on TikTok and Instagram specifically. And that's just my advice, is just double down on living a more authentic life in 2025. We're halfway through. And really redefine what healthy and wealthy means to you in life. And that's all that matters. And I think that it will result in a much happier and healthier you. And that's really what it's all about. So thank you for listening to this episode. I also want to put a quick plug in. Thank you to my sponsor, Elevation, for actually making me a lot healthier than I've ever been before. And trust me, with everything that we've got, that we're juggling right now as a family, and then me personally, I honestly couldn't do it unless my hormones and body was firing on all cylinders. So just a little plug to my sponsors right then. But yes, thank you for listening to this episode of The Beth Effect. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and share this episode. Follow at The Beth Clifford on Instagram and TikTok for more behind the scenes. And thanks for listening along. Love having you. I will be back next week with a new episode. Till then, thanks for chatting along with me.